20% of those people experience it on a regular basis, and those numbers are really alarming. Um, so when you were here last, you talked to us about you being on the receiving end of cyberbullying and how you felt about that and some things that our audience and parents should be aware of with their children and cyberbullying. So how are things going for you now?
Good. Yeah, everything is good. Like we said last time, I've kind of figured out ways to get around, people who are going to try and pick at you on the internet because it's so easy over behind a screen. So, yeah, basically just, things have been pretty good.
Good. Um, so when you were here last, being on the receiving end, we talked about some of that cyberbullying and how it could lead to anxiety and depression. Um, how are you coping with everything now at school and college and being at Pitt?
Yeah, there's for sure a lot of pressure, to do well in college. Even in high school, there's pressure to do well to get into college. And now that you're here, you're like, oh wow, like this is it. This is what comes before, getting a job and starting your whole life, moving out, living alone. So it definitely can get to you, a lot of the pressure. And so going back to the whole cyberbullying thing, if that's going on at the same time while you're, transitioning as a freshman into college, especially if you're far away from home like I am, it can be very overwhelming and it can be scary and it can be hard to be so alone, especially while you're still like establishing yourself in wherever your new city is.
So what were some of the things you did as you were thinking about transitioning from high school? Because you kind of had a support system around you at high school. You had your friends that you've known for a number of years, and now you're getting ready to transition to college. What were some of the things that you really focused on to make that transition or to help make it a little smoother?
First, I really tried to connect with my roommate, and luckily she is my absolute best friend in the whole entire world. I love her so much and her family. She's from Pittsburgh, so I had the pleasure of being able to meet her family, go to her house. Her sister also goes to Pitt. So that definitely helped, having someone immediately right as when I moved in to be close with and connect with, because we met over Facebook, which was actually really cool because we were able to talk and learn about each other before moving in. So that definitely was helpful. And another thing probably would be, figuring out how to make your new school a lot like home. Bring stuff that you enjoy doing, like if there's a book you like reading or like music you like or decorations that you have in your room at home, you can bring those to make your new space feel a little bit like the old space, so there's not so much, new, crazy, like unfamiliar stuff, especially living in like such close quarters in a dorm, which isn't the best.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about, so you met Marley, right, which is your roommate at college on the internet.
Yeah.
And we talked about how the internet can be a great place and a scary place, but you used it to your advantage because you really got to know your new roommate, you got to know what she likes, you really got to know a lot about her before you guys actually physically met.
Yeah, it was definitely scary because the way we met was there was like a University of Pittsburgh accepted freshman group or whatever. You would join the group once you decide that you're going to the school, and what you did was you wrote a little blurb about yourself. Hi, I'm Liz, I'm from New Jersey, I like hiking, and I like this band, and I am studying this, and blah, blah, blah. And it definitely is intimidating to A, put yourself out there, and B, reach out to someone who you read about and you enjoyed. Like, I messaged Marley first, and I was pretty nervous, messaging her, being like, hey, how's it going? And we eventually got to know each other, and it was even more scary being like, hey, do you want to live together next year? Because you never know what they're gonna say back to you. So it definitely was hard to put yourself out there, but worth it definitely in the long run.
Now, you had mentioned that Marley's sister goes to Pitt as well, so she's a few years ahead of you guys. So was that helpful in having somebody there that could kind of, show you around and, kind of teach you the ropes a little bit? Did that temper some of the anxiety of going away?
Yeah, definitely, because Pitt is a city, there's public transportation, the streets can be kind of confusing. It's a pretty big city, and it can be a lot if you have no idea where you're going, what you're doing, how things work. So definitely having her there to say here, like to teach you some of the etiquette of how you act and how you get around the city, and oh, this is how the bus works, this is how football games work, you know, blah, blah, blah. It was definitely very helpful to have someone who knew what they were doing. So, and even some of the friends I've made were sophomores and juniors, so they were able to just kind of let you know, give you a heads up on how to study for classes, and all that stuff was really great.
So now you're one semester down at Pitt. You're studying, your major is environmental engineering.
Yes.
And so what are some of the things, now if you look back, your first semester is in the books, you did very, very well, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good, just checking. So the first semester's down and behind you. What kinds of things did you learn your first semester? Because now you've got some your big classes coming up. You're going to be applying now to the School of Engineering. What kinds of things are you doing now that your first semester is behind you that you're going to take, you know, into your next semester and your remaining years at Pitt to help you kind of manage the anxiety and stress that goes along with being a college student?
First is, everyone says this, but it's just so true, study, obviously. In high school, not a lot of kids have to pull all-nighters studying for exams or writing papers or sit down in a library for 8+ hours at a time. But in college, you definitely will be doing that, especially around midterm and finals week. Those can be extremely stressful. So although it sucks studying and feeling like all crazy about these exams, being nervous, it definitely helps in the long run to put in the work because you will feel so much more prepared for exams. So that is definitely a big one that you need to study. It's super duper important to take care of your health though while you're there, because I know for me, if I'm laying in bed all day studying, I'm not gonna feel good. I just will feel upset and I'll feel claustrophobic or like have cabin fever. I need to get out of my room. So definitely getting out and doing something with friends every once in a while is really important, because if you're putting in all that work into academics, you're gonna kind of lose your mind after a while.
Yeah. So it's a balance of studying and watching what you're eating and a lot of exercising, getting out and amongst the other students at the university.
Yeah, but also even joining clubs and finding things there that you like. Like I'm part of several different groups at Pitt for certain stuff that I like to do, and those definitely help. Like even if they meet once every 2 weeks, it's still something to look forward to and something else to do that's out of your routine, because college does become pretty routine and it can get boring. So having something else to do to like kind of break that cycle is really nice.
Now, I remember when you were here last time, you were telling our audience about some of the programs that you had at your high school to help students who, you know, maybe feel a little bit overwhelmed at times. And I think one of them was called, I think maybe a 504 program. And then you also mentioned, you know, that there was a service dog at the school named Lucy, I believe. She's a black lab who students, when they were feeling a little stressed, could go down and pet Lucy and, you know, have some kind of alone time with her. Are there programs at the university level that students can take advantage of as well?
Yeah, there actually is. For one, there's the Office of Disabilities. And if you have any kind of special need or accommodation, they will absolutely help you. And I know, at least for me, the 504 plan transferred over into there. I'm not 100% sure what they call it at Pitt, but it's like essentially the same thing, you know, like it lets professors know like, hey, the student has an accommodation, like if they reach out to you, you know, answer as soon as possible, give them like the accommodations that they need, yada, yada. So there's the Office of Disabilities, and they definitely are helpful. And then there's the Counseling Center, which has counselors who are available at like all hours, and you can schedule appointments with them. You can become a regular, and you can schedule to see them once a week, twice a week, however often you need, or just call in and talk on the phone with someone if you need to do that too. And Pitt is great because they also have, on Tuesdays in the cathedral, they have therapy dog night, and there's dozens of dogs just like everywhere in the cathedral, and that brings in so many kids who just want to come in and, you know, pet some dogs and relax, and it's really fun. You get to meet some nice people while you're there too and talk, and it's really fun.
So I'm interested, you know, it's kind of, I guess I'm more curious that you refer to these kind of services in quote, the Office of Disabilities. And I guess people really, when they think about a disability, they might think of somebody that's in a wheelchair, or you really don't necessarily jump to somebody that might have a mental illness like depression or schizophrenia or bipolar. What are your feelings about that?
Yeah, you definitely, that's not the staple of disability, but I think it's kind of becoming one. People are starting to take it more seriously and realize that it's not just you getting in your own head. It can be pretty serious, and the effects of it can be devastating. And especially at a college level, kids are feeling like they need to find their path in life, and kids are feeling like they need to measure up and get good grades and please their parents and make friends and have a social life and all this stuff. It can be so crazy and overwhelming. So I think the schools are doing a really great job at recognizing that people with these disabilities are justified and that they need somewhere to go, just like someone who's in a wheelchair would need some special accommodations as well.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things is you got to talk about it, right? You can't,
Yeah.
you got to move the conversation from the back room into the front room and say that, people living with mental illness, whatever that mental illness is, need help, and we should talk about it and we should recognize it. And just as Pitt does, you say they're doing a great job, they're bringing that to the forefront. They're making programs available to those students who need them, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So, Elizabeth, let's talk a little bit about, we talked about the dog night in the cathedral, and you can go to pet dogs and relax and, get away and kind of decompress for a while. How important is it when you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling a little depressed to find a professional, a mental health professional, to help you through that period of time?
Yeah, it's really important. While you might want to just go to your friends, they can be helpful. Like if I'm ever feeling down, I'll talk to some of my friends, but sometimes it's just not enough what they say. They might not really fully understand what you're going through. And so they're going to try their best to give you advice that they can, but a professional definitely is going to have more knowledge of what to say and how to offer you coping strategies rather than just having someone to, talk to. While that can be nice, you sometimes need someone to push you in the right direction a little more, which a professional definitely will be able to do.
Now, you have some experience, dealing with mental health professionals. Your therapist was really great and helped you through a really rough patch. What are some of the things that, looking back, what are some of the things that you look for in a good therapist?
First is definitely trust. I want to trust that what I tell this person, they're not gonna, run off and tell you or mom or whatever, like as long as it's not like an immediate threat, obviously. But I want to be able to feel like I can trust who I'm talking to. I want to feel that they kind of understand what I'm going through and aren't going to be, judgmental of like the decisions that I sometimes have made that obviously weren't the best. I want to be able to feel like they genuinely care about me, and I'm not, like, I don't want to feel like I'm paying them to listen to me, like they're not listening because I'm giving them money. I want them to feel like they want to see me grow and they want to help me through what I'm going through and genuinely enjoy their work and have it not be just work.
So that's a great point, right? Somebody that you can talk to and that you can trust. Do you think it's important for a therapist to kind of be somewhat around your age, or or does that not matter?
I really don't think that matters, because I remember when I saw my first therapist, who I saw for like way longer than the second one. She was older than the second therapist I saw. The second one was way closer to my age, way younger, but for some reason I felt that I definitely connected with my first therapist more, and maybe it's because I spent more time with her, and she saw me through my roughest time, and so she was with me through the worst parts of it. But I definitely think that it doesn't matter. It's just whoever you might connect with and whoever you enjoy talking to the most.
Now, what about your friends and your network of friends as you're going through, like you say, some of the roughest parts and the roughest times? How important is it to have that circle of friends there to help you through?
Yeah, it's super important to have your friends, and not all of your friends will understand or want to help you. And so those are the friends you kind of put on the back burner, but your real true friends who will be your lifelong friends are going to be there for you and going to help you no matter what and want to see you doing well. And so those are the people that you need to keep in your close circle.
So that's a great point about some of your friends aren't going to understand it. Do you think it's important for parents of children who are going through a rough patch, for them to tell the parents of your friends that, hey, you know, my daughter or my son may be kind of backing away from a friendship with your son or daughter, but it's not a personal thing. It's because they're, you know, my child is going through something and it's going to be fine, but I just want you to know. Do you think it's important to have that conversation?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think in a perfect world, everyone would kind of have a grasp on what it can be like going through mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, bipolar, or whatever be it. But it can be tricky with parent intervention. Like, I know if you had done that to my friend's parents, I found out, I probably would have kind of freaked out at the time. I know that like parents always want to look out for the best for their children. They want to do what they think is right. But sometimes it's better to let them kind of handle it. And I remember some of my good friends when I was going through my rough time contacted mom and were like, we're worried about Liz. We think she's going through a really hard time. And so I think it kind of can get to that, like it can get to the point where parents need to say to other parents, or parents need to talk to the friends of the child who's going through the mental illness. I think that can be like kind of a sticky situation, though. Definitely don't jump to that conclusion that you need to intervene and try and fix everything, because while parents want to fix everything for their kids, sometimes they can't.
So that's a good point. So let's talk a little bit about, now that you know you've kind of gone through this, you know, when you think back, what are some, you know, for those people who are out watching, whether they're a college student and they have a friend who might seem a little depressed, what are some of the signs that we should look out for, that other students should look out for, or parents should look out for when it comes to their friends or their children? What are some of the signs of, you know, something may be going on here?
Definitely isolation. I know when I was feeling depressed, all I wanted to do was be alone, because I felt like no one was going to understand what I was feeling. So I always would just go right to my room or isolate myself somewhere, leave the house, go somewhere alone. That's definitely big. Loss of interest is also huge. If you know that you used to love going to the movies and you say, hey, want to go to the movies? And you're like, no, like I don't want to, and you never want to do anything. That's also big. You're not going to want to do the stuff you used to enjoy doing. And just someone's just not seeming quite like their self. And sometimes it can be normal to have these mood swings. You know, when the weather's bad, I kind of just like get gloomy, but definitely for like extended periods of time that they just are seeming not themselves and they're not just like seeming quite right.
So while you were going through this, though, you were on a professional cheerleading squad. And so you were traveling the country, you were part of a team, you guys were winning national championships. How did that play a role in helping you through your depression?
I think it was good and bad. Good because it gave me something to do and it got me out of the house and it got me active. And like working out when you are depressed is so underrated. I think, you know, there are endorphins and released from your body or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I really don't know. But like, I know that like that's a thing that when you work out, like you genuinely do feel happier. So I think going to a 3-hour practice, and even if I didn't really talk to much of my teammates that night, if I was feeling really bad, still just being around people and being physical definitely helped me feel a lot better at the end of the day. But you know, sometimes it could be bad too, because I was in the car a lot, driving several hours to practice. School was getting overwhelming, and it could sometimes be a lot to handle being away for like going on flights every weekend to go to far away places to compete, and it was a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, and sometimes it was hard to cope with. But I think in the long run, it definitely was beneficial because I became really close with my teammates, and they were there to help me, And being physical definitely was helpful. And I think having something that I enjoyed doing was definitely really, really beneficial.
So let's recap here for a minute. So this whole cyberbullying thing, right?
Yeah.
We talked about that on the last show, really out of control. Technology can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how people choose to use it and how, more or less you're engaged in it. It has, if not managed properly, or the downside, it can lead to depression or sometimes even worse. There are a lot of suicidal thoughts of people that are being cyberbullied, right? Or go through depression so much that they're having suicidal thoughts. And then, we talked a little bit about therapy and about, a therapist and managing your stress and managing anxiety as you kind of turn the page and shift into the next chapter of your life at school. And I know, for you, I know that medication played a role in that, because sometimes talking is not always, the right answer. So, your doctor prescribed some medications for you. And what's astonishing to me is the number of people who need to take those medications, and for whatever reason, they stop taking them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, mental illness is an illness, and so sometimes medication does need to be used to treat it. I know it's so, so important to stay on your medication, even though it might seem, I never thought the idea of taking medication was glamorous, because, you feel like you need these pills to feel artificially happy, and sometimes it can make you feel, just like bummed out, like, wow, like I have to take these pills to feel normal. It kind of makes you get a little down too, but I definitely, looking back, know when I would stop taking my medication, I definitely took a turn for the worse. And it's so important to realize that although it's not your fault that you have this illness, and so you need to take your medication, just like someone who's sick would need to take medication. They can't not take it because they don't want to, they're sick. So it's kind of the same principle, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. When your doctor, and sometimes it takes a while to regulate
Yeah,
the
certain
medication.
certain medications will not work for you and can make you feel worse, and that's really important to note. Say, like, hey, I haven't been feeling better, I've been feeling worse, I've been feeling the same, to find the right balance that's good for you.
Yeah, exactly. And your doctor can help you through that. Would you recommend keeping a journal? Because sometimes you forget about how you felt 2 weeks ago. Were there things that you did when you were communicating with your doctors to say, yeah, 2 weeks ago I felt like this, and last week I felt like that, and today I'm feeling like this, to kind of help them regulate the medication?
I never really kept a journal, just because I was seeing my therapist so regularly. I kind of once a week I was just telling her how the week went, and she could kind of determine how things were going. But I feel like that could definitely be really helpful, especially if you're not seeing someone as regularly. You can, write down how you're feeling on a certain day and what things have triggered you to make you more upset, and what things, have made you feel good. And you can look back on that at the end of the week or end of 2 weeks or however long, and you can say, I've been feeling better on this medication than I did on that one.
So, Elizabeth, for the high school seniors that are out there that might be watching this and getting ready for their transition into college, what are some final tips or suggestions that you could make to help make their transition a little easier?
Definitely get as involved as possible. It's going to be the easiest way to meet people, especially if you're going to a big college. Like Pitt has a lot of kids. And so I don't think I would have made as many friends as I have if I didn't get involved and get into smaller, more, smaller groups that have similar interests as you. But at the same time, you don't want to put too much on your plate, especially being a first semester freshman. You kind of want to get a feel for how classes work and for how much you need to study per class, and what the workload is going to be like for you. So keep an eye on that as well. But, it's definitely important to get out and do stuff that is not related to school.
How important is it to stick to a schedule? you make a couple good points here. So one is get out and get involved, do things, but don't try to do everything your first semester.
Yeah.
Pace yourself, really get a lay of the land, understand your classes, because let's face it, you know, kids are living at home, they're living with mom and dad. Mom and dad are getting them up every day, get off to school, taking them here, taking them there. All of a sudden you find yourself at a big university like Pitt, and there's no mom or dad there to wake you up. And so
Yeah.
it's about you. You really have to, you know, make sure that you're staying on track, you're getting things done, you're going to class, all of that. And I'm sure that for your first semester, some days you thought, wow, what have I gotten into here?
Yeah.
It's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it's really important to keep on top of the work you need to get done, or else, having 3 classes a day might not seem like a lot when you're in high school, and you might have upwards of like 5 or 6 classes a day, but it really can come down to be a lot, and you might feel the need to skip class, and when you skip class, you miss lecture notes, and when you miss lecture notes, you're not going to have them to study for the exam. So it really all does pile on top of each other, so it is super important to, be disciplined and say, I want to go out today, but I really have this paper I need to work on. So maybe instead of sitting down and working on it for 4 hours, say, hey, if it's due next Monday, I'll work on it, Tuesday, Wednesday, a little bit each day until it's due, instead of, waiting until the last minute, trying to cram it all in, getting all stressed out.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, you're doing a great job. By the time when this episode airs, you'll be back at Pitt.
Yeah.
Into your second semester, right, as a freshman at Pitt. What does next semester look like for you? Is it going to be busy?
Yeah. Well, because I decided to do engineering, I have to catch up with, calculus and physics classes, and also because it's environmental engineering, some environmental labs and stuff. So the schoolwork is definitely going to be tough, but next semester, Marley and I are also planning to rush for a sorority, so that'll be kind of my fun thing that I can do to, get away from the schoolwork. I also plan on being one of the tour guides for, people who are looking at the school and who are touring it and want to see what Pitt is like, so that should be fun too. So I definitely have a lot on my plate, but some schoolwork that's going to be hard, but also some things that will be, relaxing and will be fun.
Well, Elizabeth, always good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're doing a great job at school. I'm so proud of you, so thanks for coming in. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this all possible. Remember, all of our episodes can be viewed on demand at healthy0360.com, and our podcast can be found in the iTunes store. Well, Elizabeth, we're all about social media, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. We use the hashtag #RealStories, and we hope everybody would do the same. So on behalf of myself, my colleague and friend Cortland, who is on holiday, and the entire Healthy 0360 family, we want to wish you a very pleasant new year, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
I never had so much love on my